Okay, let's now get into part 2. So we start with the menu button. There are many functions. You can see the first function is the playback menu. Playback folder, hide image, playback display options, focus point. You can customize to your liking, image review. There are many functions. The one I changed is this one. I placed it on slideshow. There are many functions. You can select images. You can see the option. You can select images to send them to a smart device. There are many functions, as you can see. The one I use the most is the photo shooting menu, because this is where you change many settings. You come here, you have your shooting options, image quality. I'm using RAW and JPEG File. I shoot RAW on the XQD memory card and I shoot JPEG on the backup memory card for redundancy. So these are the options. You just scroll using your buttons. There are many options to choose from. Personally, I use RAW and JPEG File. How I will describe JPEG File is simply what you get after you edit your RAW files. But now you see the advantage of using RAW files. You're going to have maximum. You can do the most to your image when you're using RAW files. So personally, I edit RAW files. I deliver the photos that I've edited from RAW files. But if you're on the go, run and go situation, maybe you're traveling to Africa or maybe you're traveling overseas to a different place, you can use the JPEG File option so that you just share the photos immediately, because there is no much editing that you need to do from those photos. Make sure you get the photo right in camera so that you can just share it directly using the JPEG File. But personally, even the RAW files that I get them from the camera directly, I prefer editing them and adjusting a few things here and there. So let's continue. That was the image quality. Let's now go to the image size. Image size. When you press that one, you press OK. You can see my JPEG is large, 45 megapixel. There's medium and there's small. If you want to save on space, if you're using a small memory card, you can maybe change your backups to medium, but I leave it at large. You can see my RAW files are large, the largest you can get. There's also an option to, now it's on medium. There's also small. My fingers have like oil on them. That's why you can see. But the touch screen is very fast. I find myself being more quicker when I'm using the buttons. So that is the image size. NEF recording. It's on. The bit depth I use, you can change it to 12-bit or 14-bit. I use the 14-bit depth. you get the most detail. ISO sensitivity settings. You can see our ISO is currently at 250. But this one, there's a dedicated function button for that. You can see this one, it has been written ISO. This one, when you press this one, it only shows you the ISO. You press this one like so and you change it using this wheel. I use this one when I'm shooting. It's faster. You can see. You press the ISO button in and use the wheel to scroll. That is the ISO sensitivity. But if you want to use the touch screen, you can find it in the photo shooting menu. Your white balance, you can choose your white balance. Mine is at 5600. You can choose it to be 5600. And also there's a dedicated button for white balance. You come here, you see this one. You see when you press it, it shows you my white balance is at 5600 Kelvin. And even this one you can change. You can see options that there's like a small house there. the one that you've decided. There's cloudy, flash, sunlight, and also there's auto 1. Most people use auto 1 on most camera ranges like the Canons, the Sonys. Personally, that is what I use also when I'm shooting weddings, but those specific moments I prefer using the manual white balance, the one that I put in myself based on the situation, like the 5600 Kelvin. In most weddings, I use the 5500 Kelvin. That is the unit I use to shoot everything from start to finish in the morning till the evening when the wedding is ending. So that is my own personal preference. And also in other weddings, I've used the auto 1 white balance function and it has worked perfectly for me. But in some scenarios, the white balance shift, you can see some photos are colored differently from others because of the white balance shift from the flash, and also depending on the scenario. Personally, I keep it at 5500 Kelvin so that every part of the wedding stays consistent in terms of the white balance. So you can also change your picture control. You have many options. There's auto, there's standard, there's neutral, there's vivid. I use the standard one and the neutral. And previously, a few months ago, I was using the portrait mode. There are many options. If you're shooting landscape, you will want to choose the landscape option. Let me leave it at standard. You can manage picture control, color space. You have two options, sRGB or Adobe RGB. The standard one is the sRGB. Active delighting, long exposure. There are many functions, vignette control, flicker reduction. The only option from this segment that I use is the interval timer shooting. This one is for the time lapse, but I rarely use it because I rarely shoot time lapses. So I leave it off because I don't want the interval shooting. Okay, let's go back. Anything important you need to learn from this segment? Let me see. Yes, image area. If you're using the Nikon D850, you have the option to take a photo on full frame mode or DX mode, or even a 5x4 Instagram size, 1x1, which is a square. DX mode, this is a crop sensor, and also 1.2x. Personally, I use the full frame and crop the photo to my liking while I'm editing, so I don't stress myself with this one. But there are those specific projects that you know you're doing specifically for Instagram, so those ones I use the 5x4 crop option, so the sensor becomes slightly smaller, but I leave it at full frame since I shoot mainly weddings. We are now done with part 2 of the user guide, menu and controls of the Nikon D850.